让我们来再次回顾一下今日新闻视频，希望更多人了解事实和真相。我是主播天影亮，感谢观众们的收听收看，我们下期再会。
撤离！撤离！快走！快走！快走！快！
这是107啊，107迎满地了。这拿着面，这传统面啊，拿面在这进行的洪水。这边107已经不行了，这边呢还现在保的是这边，上面保的是。
撤离！快！
这是107啊，107。
这把差评上来了够了，这把差评来了，主要能力这个这个不要这个差评。那么让那些把那个人气过了白白的干。
你瞅给那小孩累的都没水了，你快给那小孩放下了吧。
来受教。
人家都逃难了。
这是为回逃难的人。清晨4点多，源源不断，一直在往南边走，从市区往。
又有一车灾民啊，这个用大货车拉过来了，这些灾民。哇，这一车都是灾民。这些老百姓啥都没有了，被救。
到高地啊，等待救援。先撤到高地等待救援啊，不要着急，不要往里面去了啊！哎，大家等待救援，不要往里面再深了啊，就在这边等着。
我的车，我的钱，全部没有了。
来了，
别喝了呀！
一车一车又一车。
我这要过去了，我这要把它接来呀，我可咋呢？你说，要不了了。
What makes it particularly dangerous is simply this, that China is not seeking coexistence. China is seeking domination. And that is the backdrop that's driving this. I believe President Xi and the Chinese Communist Party believe that Biden would come in here and repeat the Obama's policies of appeasement and accommodation. And there's some evidence that Biden is doing that with Iran and Russia. But by and large, he's adopted the policies of the Trump administration, reduced the rhetoric, certainly. That's something he's done that's different. But those policies are in place, the sanctions, the tariffs, and he's strengthening the resolve of our allies. Look at the visits this week. Sherman, who's in this meeting in China, was in South Korea, Japan, and Mongolia. Blinken, Secretary of State, will be in India. Secretary of Defense Austin is out in Southeast Asia with Singapore, Vietnam, and the Philippines.
What do you say to some who think that we are already in the middle of a second Cold War with China?
Well, it certainly has the resemblance of that. The Cold War, remember how stark that was. The Warsaw Pact, headed up by Russia, had hundreds of thousands of troops on their western border, and NATO had hundreds of thousands of troops also on their eastern border. And the United States had over 400,000. So we were facing off at each other with significant conventional forces, also owning most of the strategic and nuclear weapons in the world at the time. Russia knew it could not dominate. And there was peaceful coexistence, with the exception of a war in Korea and a war in Vietnam, certainly, to contain communism. But this threat is more dangerous in my judgment because they are seeking domination.
The Chinese Communist Party is at war with the United States our way of life, the international system that we helped create through our blood, sweat, and tears and financials at the end of World War II. I think those are facts. So I think what the United States needs to do is, if the Chinese Communist Party does not want to have a transparent investigation of why the coronavirus more than likely either leaked out of the lab, or maybe it was unintentional, maybe it was a mistake. I could certainly buy that. I think we're all human. We know mistakes happen. Then they should be open to an investigation. If they will not do that, Dagan, I think we have a lot of tools to get them to do that. I think the first thing and the most obvious thing is we're all celebrating the Olympics right now. Why in God's green earth are we going to send athletes to the next games in Beijing when the Chinese won't even allow an investigation into the greatest tragedy, what might even be in human history when it comes to the coronavirus? So I think that's a first step. We should be talking about economic sanctions. We should be talking about maybe closing our embassy. I mean, think about the impact coronavirus has had on the United States and throughout the world. The United States alone has spent over $6 trillion in economic stimulus to fight the coronavirus, to help the American people. That's more than we spent fighting World War II. So I think Joe Biden owes the American people an obligation to really take this to the mat with the Chinese.